Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to pull back the curtain with you today because we're going to take a deeply fascinating, almost forensic look into the absolute science of modern content creation. And look, the days of just pointing a camera and hoping for the best, those are completely over. For executives and brand leaders out there, understanding this top 5% of tactics isn't just some neat little party trick. It is literally the baseline for survival if you want to stop bleeding ad spend on obsolete strategies. So today, we are decoding the invisible architecture of the 2026 digital landscape. Let's get into it. We have absolutely all been there. I mean, why do certain clips completely hijack your brain at 2 a.m.? It feels like a random, mindless scroll, right? Well, what we're going to uncover in this explainer is that you actually aren't just scrolling randomly at all. You are stepping into a highly engineered, perfectly calibrated psychological trap. Okay, so to understand how this architecture works, we really have to understand the new primary currency of the modern internet, the rewatch rate. The old metrics of success, things like follower counts or just mashing the like button, those are practically dead. Today, completion and rewatching are the whole shebang. If you reach the end of a clip and allow it to loop, even for just a couple of seconds, it is the ultimate signal of value to the AI. It basically screams to the system, hey, this is captivating. And this shift has been absolutely massive. Think about the old playbook for a second, stuffing captions with random hashtags, posting 5 times a day, just kind of hoping to catch a random algorithmic wave. Let me be crystal clear here. Doing that today actively damages your account's reputation. The 2026 reality is entirely different. The AI is completely ruthless now, and the focus is 100% on watch time, completion percentages, and these deep psychological hooks. 3 seconds. That is the entire, terrifyingly narrow window a creator has to prove their worth to the algorithm before a human being even fully processes what they're looking at. In that tiny fraction of a second, the AI is scanning visual elements, it's analyzing audio wavelengths, it's reading embedded text. And if you scroll past before that 3-second mark, you instantly penalize the creator. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do they stop you in just 3 seconds? Well, they use a curiosity gap. It's not about having some flashy, expensive camera. It's all about cognitive dissonance. A creator might open with a deeply contrarian take just to make you defensive. Or, and this is fascinating, they might start with a completely black screen for a second and a half. That jarring lack of stimulation actually triggers your brain's evolutionary orienting reflex. You literally have to pause and seek resolution to the anomaly. But capturing your attention is really only half the battle. Once they have it, they deploy the ultimate 2026 twist, the false ending. In the old days, creators would drag out the big secret until the very last second. We all hated that, so we swiped away. But the new meta? It's giving you a quick dopamine hit by resolving that initial tension right around the 5-second mark. But, just like a magician revealing a small trick only to instantly pull an impossible rabbit out of a hat, they immediately open a deeper, way more complex loop. It totally resets your decaying attention span. Which brings us to the formal structure of modern retention. It is a super strict 3-act architecture. Act 1 is your hook and stakes, happening right in those first 3 seconds. Act 2 is the progressive payoff. You can never, ever front-load information here. Instead, creators use what are called retention bridges, basically verbal speed bumps every 5 seconds, but here's the massive mistake everyone makes, just to jolt your brain back to attention. And finally, Act 3 is the satisfying resolution and a single crystal clear call to action. Now, to actually enforce that 3-act structure, editors rely on highly specific visual manipulation tactics. We're talking jump cut zooms that create this visual heartbeat of urgency, or sudden brightness snaps in the color grading that literally jolt your optic nerve. You've also got single-word, bold motion text that forces your brain to read along, perfectly tethering your focus. And oh man, that progress bar overlay? Pure genius. It completely exploits the sunk cost fallacy. You see that bar filling up, your brain calculates the time you've already invested, and boom, it decides it makes way more sense to just finish the clip than to abandon it. But honestly, perhaps the most counterintuitive trick of all isn't visual in the slightest. It's the silence section. In a digital environment that demands constant, loud stimulation, editors are intentionally cutting all sound for a full second right before a major reveal. Why? Because it creates a total vacuum of tension. Think of it like a crowded party suddenly going dead quiet. You instinctually stop whatever you're doing and you pay extra close attention just to figure out why the sensory environment just dramatically shifted. And that trick brilliantly highlights the whole shift toward audio strategy. Because how do you turn a muted, passive scroller into an active participant? You use the whispered aloud technique. A creator will start the clip speaking incredibly softly. To actually hear what they're saying, you have to physically lean in and press the volume button on your phone. And the exact millisecond you physically commit to that hardware, they switch to a loud, high-energy delivery, completely locking you in. So manipulating interaction has entirely bypassed the old traps. You simply can't just ask for a follow anymore. The AI aggressively suppresses cheap engagement bait. Instead, creators are using psychological bait. They might hop on and confidently declare that a wildly popular design tool like Canva Pro is a total waste of money. This immediately sparks a genuine, emotionally charged debate in the comments. And here is the real secret. The AI completely ignores comment sentiment. It literally does not care who is right. It only measures how fast people are arguing. Which naturally leads us to Cunningham's Law. This states that the absolute best way to get the right answer on the internet isn't to ask a question, it's to post the wrong answer. Creators will intentionally leave glaring, non-critical errors in their content. They will literally mispronounce a common word, or they'll confidently state a statistic is 50%, while the graphic right next to their head clearly says 40%. I love this analogy. It's the equivalent of purposefully leaving a giant piece of spinach in your teeth at a party. People literally cannot stop themselves from pointing it out. It perfectly captures why that works so flawlessly. It harnesses the internet's universal, almost irresistible urge to correct others. Yeah, it's highly cynical, sure, but it is an incredibly effective way to exploit human biology for massive algorithmic distribution. All right, let's pivot slightly here, because generating arguments is really only half the battle. To actually survive in 2026, the entire ecosystem is shifting. The platform is becoming the Gen Z Google. And for executives, this is exactly where that top 5% knowledge becomes pure, undeniable ROI. We are moving entirely away from the lottery of isolated viral hits and treating the platform like a highly indexed, searchable database. The AI's optical character recognition is so incredibly advanced now, it can literally read the text on a t-shirt in the background of your shot. Crazy, right? So to actually rank in these search results, you have to follow a rigid 2026 SEO formula. You absolutely must verbally speak your target keyword in the first 3 seconds, so the audio transcription logs it. You've got to place that exact keyword on screen as native text, integrate it seamlessly into the very first line of your caption, and use 2 to 3 highly specific hashtags. Those generic tags like tutorial, they are completely useless now. You need exact, hyper-specific context. This SEO formula then acts as the foundation for an entire scalable content strategy. You aren't just guessing what to make anymore. Step 1 and 2, you type a query into the search autocomplete to identify guaranteed real-time demand. Step 3, you create one long-form pillar explainer on that high-performing topic. And finally, step 4, you mathematically slice that pillar into a fast-paced short, a controversial hook clip, a podcast snippet, and a swipeable carousel. You are completely saturating a specific keyword to signal deep topical authority to the AI. Now, you might be thinking, doesn't this rigid mathematical approach turn the app into a sterile, boring utility? Well, the answer lies in balance. Search intent is what gets the content discovered, but high entertainment is what keeps the viewer watching. The absolute best creators perfectly mask their rigid SEO architecture right inside that jump-cut-heavy, highly entertaining 3-act storytelling model we talked about earlier. But look, none of this matters if you are failing the underlying math. And here is the harsh reality check of analytics. 40. If you cannot achieve a 40% completion rate on content longer than 20 seconds, you do not have that 5% executive edge. You are fundamentally failing the ultimate measure of viewer satisfaction. You just aren't in the top tier, and the algorithm will absolutely not push your content. To fix that, top creators use the retention drop-off graph. This is a forensic, completely ego-free tool. You literally have to look at the exact second the retention line plummets and ask yourself some really difficult questions. Did you pause for just a little too long on frame 7? Did you use a repetitive visual transition? You have to diagnose the exact moment your storytelling mechanics broke down and your audience abandoned you. Now, executing all of this flawlessly week after week inevitably leads to burnout, so systemization is key. The real difference between failure and scale is context switching versus block filming. Toggling back and forth between the performative act of being on camera and the highly analytical act of editing just burns immense mental fuel. The pros preserve their stamina by block filming. They dedicate hours to sit down and capture everything in one continuous session, aggressively managing their cognitive loads so they can just schedule all those pieces later. And they also manage their risk with the 80-20 output rule. 80% of their output relies strictly on proven formats to protect that crucial baseline reach, leaving just 20% for experimental styles. Coupled with this is a really fascinating habit, dedicating just 30 minutes a month to scrolling the app purely as a detective. They step back from being a passive consumer to analytically study the structural mechanics working in completely different niches. So, the absolute most crucial takeaway here is this: the invisible framework is now visible to you. By understanding these curiosity gaps, the false endings, the progress bars, you've gained that vital top 5% edge. You've fundamentally transformed from a passive scroller or a frustrated marketer into a highly intentional architect. You honestly just won't be able to unsee the blueprint manipulating your attention from here on out. Which leaves us with a pretty profound, lingering question. If everyone out there masters this SEO optimization and optimally hacks our dopamine with jump cuts and whispers, are we permanently locked into an endless, exhausting arms race of micro-dopamine hits? Or will the algorithm eventually have to evolve to crave messy, boring, unedited authenticity just to find a new pattern interrupt? It is definitely something to seriously think about the next time you loop a 15-second clip at 2 a.m. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today.